Great apes are under siege. Chimpanzees and gorillas killed for meat. Orphaned infants smuggled to the Middle East, destined for short, miserable lives in deplorable conditions. It is illegal hunting and cross-border trade in endangered species, but authorities do little to stop it. Following a trail of evidence, investigators build a case against smugglers, buyers, and the government officials who protect them. The Cairo Connection.
I watched your documentary on the Cairo Connection. It makes me wonder if we still have gorillas and chimpanzees and apes in the wild in Africa.
We still have, but those populations are getting hammered for the bushmeat and now the orphan trade. I mean, pets. The Cairo Connection was one. The demand source from the Middle East is high. There's a lot of private collections where very wealthy Arabs have their own little zoos. It's kind of a status symbol to have a tiger and a lion at home, yeah. And so chimps and gorillas fit into those collections. So the demand from those collections was mostly channeled through Egypt. So we tried to document that, exposing again some key dealers. Again, nothing ever happened to them. Again, none of the apes was confiscated or repatriated, which is one of the CITES stipulation. More recently, there were 130 chimps exported from Guinea-Conakry to China. They were all exported with fake permits stating captive born. Not a single one was captive born. They all came from the wild. Hundreds, thousands of chimps needed to be killed to produce those 130. Again, nobody pushes China to confiscate. Nobody's being prosecuted. Nothing happens.
What do you think is the best way to combat wildlife trade?
Educating the people will make a big difference, and educating the people means getting the media interested, and I'm glad I have this opportunity, but as I then to go out with images where maybe 2 viewers turn off and the other 8 or out of 10 say, I didn't realize that, I'm going to change, or I'm going to do something differently in future, or I'm going to tell my friends about it. So maybe you have lost 2 viewers who can't handle the graphic imagery, but you have gained 8 conservationists who didn't know before and now know and might be willing to change in some way.
How can each individual help?
So I think the individual himself, herself, is limited. She or he can do, the consumption is one aspect, but I mean, I think if individuals feel strongly about the message, to take the message further, not to say, okay, I won't buy a reptile skin bag tomorrow, or instead I'll do something else with my money, but to convince her 5 friends to also not buy a reptile skin bag, and her 5 friends to convince another 5 friends. And as I said, to just generally make their voices heard, you know, write to their parliamentarians, write to CITES. If these people get emails, if these people get phone calls, they realize the public cares. If the public, they're civil servants, they're paid by us. They're supposed to act in our interest. If they decide that we feel strongly about these issues, they will act in our interest. As long as we don't react, they feel it's fine to go on as it is. They won't do anything about it. So the individual has a voice, but it's, you know, work to make that voice heard.
You have received many awards for your works. Do you feel it means more responsibility for you?
You know, the awards is, I don't know, it's nice to get recognized, but at the end, you know, you're not going to get the awards for what really matters, meaning, you know, the hard, difficult issues to be addressed, the public, the policymakers just don't want to deal with. If you push their nose into it, you don't generally get awards for that. You know, you become classified as an extremist, and that's the way of dealing with you in that context. So if there was extremist award, I would be happy to win one. But you don't get an award for being considered an extremist.
When you try to film your documentaries, Have you ever received death threats?
Not death threats as such. I mean, the fact is, you know, I have learned to get in and out pretty quickly before people catch on why I'm there, what I'm trying to do, what the consequences might be of such a film and exposure. So, yes, some of these traders are concerned about losing some of their markets. And yes, they don't like what I or some, you know, my colleagues have been doing with me. And yes, you have to be aware of that. And yes, you have to try to avoid, as I said, in my case, it's getting in and out, not hang around, and give them a chance to figure out what you're doing, why you're there, and so on. Found all my spare film gone, empty containers, opened the camera. Film has been removed as well. So clearly, while I had a meeting with the manager last night, they went into my room and searched it, stole all the film, emptied the camera.
What do you see yourself today, Karl? As a filmmaker, as a photographer, conservationist, activist?
Troublemaker.
Why troublemaker?
Because as I said, basically nobody wants the message. The media doesn't like those harsh realities to be confronted with. The policymakers don't like it. The public in general, it doesn't want to, has enough bad news on their plate, economically, politically, everything else. They don't want another level of problems. Mm-hmm. So every time you push these messages onto somebody, they really think you're just trouble. They don't really want to hear that at this stage.
Is there still any hope left that we can save wildlife, given the situation today?
I personally see little hope. I mean, there will be areas, of course, with, you know, in Africa we have reached stages where private individuals buy estates, fence them in, hire their own ranger forces, do what the government is not able to do in national parks, and say, I want my own private little reserve and I do whatever it takes to protect my wildlife. And of course, animals will survive in that setting, and they will be relatively happy. But what does it mean for the future? The only wildlife left is in these fenced-in areas, which are basically glorified zoos again.